We're continuing in our sermon series on Come Together. What is it that brings us together? And this week we're focusing on anger, wrath, hurt feelings, all of the bad things that can happen at a family reunion. The song I chose was Don't Let the Sun Go Down. Y'all know that song? Don't let the sun go down on me. All my life, my mother quoted that scripture, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. In my household, when I was growing up, we had to have everything resolved at bedtime. Period. No choice. Everything had to be resolved. All anger, all frustration, all bitterness. On my dad's side of the family, that was not necessarily the case. As he often said, his family would rather climb a tree and get in a fight as stand on the ground and get along. And there were long-standing feuds and even lawsuits over 6 inches of property. What drives these two different ideals about how we should handle anger? This is a dangerous sermon to preach, and I may step on your toes, and if you disagree with me, it's fine. Don't hurt my feelings. If you want to say, well, Sparks is an idiot and he's wrong and that's not right, look to the scriptures yourself. As I say of every sermon, go back and search the scriptures yourself to discern if what I'm saying is true. So here we go. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Do you know why that's important? Do you know why that's a big deal? This is written thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago. Yet in the 20th century and the early 21st century, neuroscientists made a startling discovery. That when you go to sleep at night, your memories move from short-term memory to long-term memory. They go from short-term to long-term. And when they move from short-term to long-term, whatever emotions are associated with that memory will be laid down forever. Forever. If you were mad, every time you remember that, long-term, you will experience the same emotions. The same things will come flooding back. It's called, in biblical circles, spiritual circles, wounded memories. Maybe generational curses. Maybe I ain't done being mad yet. I don't. If you're quoting a country western song, right? Y'all know that song? I ain't done being mad yet. Okay. Part of that's because we let the sun go down on our wrath, and it moved from short-term to long-term memory. Now it's permanent. And you will remember this. I mean, can you remember some time when you were just so mad, and every time you remember, you can even remember the smells of the day, right? I can remember my family, not close, but like aunt or uncle, in and around my granddaddy's funeral, did something. And I don't know why, but I was a little bitty. Who in here is about 10? I got a 10-year-old? You're older than 10. But I was about 10 years old. And it flew all over me. Y'all know what that means? That's what my mama says. It flew all over me. And I didn't like it. And I was sitting, when I heard it, I was sitting in the kitchenette area of McMillan's Funeral Home in Boonville, Mississippi. And there was a tray of fudge, and there was a pot of little ham and biscuits. I'm country, so I'm country as cornbread, and people would fix ham and biscuits, and they had these small biscuits, and they'd even bring them to eat at night. They were so good. And I think it's Miss Wyvon had made pear preserves. You know, the ones that get real waxy. And I had those sitting there. And I remember the smell of those pear preserves. I remember the smell of that ham. And I remember the smell of that fudge to this day. And I still get angry about it. And that's not the reason every time I see fudge I want to eat it, to make it go away and I don't have to smell it anymore. Although that's a pretty good excuse, right? Be gone, let me consume thee. There is a reason that God, through His sovereign will in the writing of His Scriptures, says to us, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. He made us. He knows us, right? He made us. He knows us. He knows how we work. You think you ought to believe me as a mechanic or the guy that worked on the car that built it? What do you think? The guy that built it, right? God knows us. Now, like Alder says, the Bible doesn't say don't be angry. It says be angry, yet do not sin. It's okay to experience righteous anger. I want to give you permission to look at things and go, that's not right. Look at somebody and go, that's not right. That's not right. It is okay to say that ain't right. It's okay to be offended by things that are happening in the world that are not good. It's okay to say that ain't right. But what we can't do is let that percolate down to where it becomes sinful. I've withdrawn a lot online lately. I've just kind of pulled back because all the politics, right? Right? And I see people posting stuff that can't possibly be true. There is anger, deep abiding anger. There is doubts. There is hatred among everybody. And I don't want to be a part of it. It's okay for you to look at any politician and any person in public life and go, I don't know about them. It's okay. You can be angry and say they are hurting people or they're not good. But you do not have the right to be out there lying, because that's sin. Slandering, because that's sin. Gossiping, that's sin. You know what gossiping is? Gossip is sharing something that you don't know if it's true or not. Let me say that again. Gossiping is sharing something that you don't know if it's true or not. Any of y'all ever shared a meme on Facebook or Twitter or something? A meme? Any of y'all ever go back and verify before you share it whether it's true or not? Then don't share it. Now let me be clear. Don't share it if you don't know it's true. You want to do the groundwork, get on the online. We have online right now. You can search it all up. And I'm not probably preaching to most of y'all. I'm really preaching to those that are watching online. And the friends that you know that you're thinking of that hack you off. I almost said something else. But hack you off in all their stuff, right? Send them a copy of this sermon, right? Okay. Now that I got that off my chest. What are the real things that you deal with anger most every day? Usually, it's somebody you have in your life that you are close to physically because you just have to be around them, or it's close to emotionally that has done something that has made you mad, right? Maybe it was they didn't do something, right? There's something they're supposed to do. You were supposed to do this. I forgot. You're an idiot, right? You know? You know what I'm talking about? Just, you didn't do it and you were supposed to do it, right? Or there's somebody that did something they weren't supposed to do, right? I mean, they kind of did something wrong. Or maybe it's a friend of yours. Has a friend of yours ever said something that hurt your feelings? You ever got your feelings hurt because of somebody that you loved or respected? or just kind of new. It happens in churches all the time. I have seen incredible movements of God get completely squandered by people getting their feelings hurt. It just happens. That is the chief way that Satan attacks movements of God, of people getting their feelings hurt. That it just tears out the heart. Because somebody wounded you, and you legitimately have a right to be not happy about that. But how do we handle it? How do we handle it when somebody we love, when we have somebody we love that does something to hurt us? Well, the best way I can describe it is you need to say to them, hey, you hurt me. I didn't like this. It was not good. Do you realize that most people don't know what they did to you because they did it dumbly or without knowledge? And if you don't tell them, they won't know. Well, he should know. No, he shouldn't. Have any of y'all ever said that? Well, he ought to know what he did, or she ought to know what they did. No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. We have to give allowances for people being idiots. I'm serious. You have to give allowances for people having momentary idiocracy, right? How many of you have ever done something? Raise your hand if you've done something dumb. Raise your hand if you've done something dumb this morning. Right? We do dumb. I'm well educated. I've got 3 degrees. I'm highly educated. People think, I have a whole bunch of random information in my head. I do dumb stuff on the daily. Right? How many of you ever walked into a room and couldn't remember why you're there? Dumb stuff. How many of you went to get something out of the refrigerator and then 15 minutes later you're just standing there staring at it because you don't remember what you're trying to get, right? How many of you left the refrigerator open and the ice cream melted? No? All right. How many of you put something in the microwave, forgot that you were microwaving it, and came back 2 days later to find it? Anybody? I mean, we do dumb stuff. We say dumb stuff. How do I look in this outfit? Well, I don't know as I'd wear it. Ooh. You're not wearing that, are you? Right? Or you're sitting in a church meeting and somebody has a great idea and you go, well, that's stupid. Right? We know better than that, right? Okay. We know that we do stupid stuff. I've hurt people's feelings. I'm a bull in the china shop. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing, right? And I used to be so big that I was a bull in a china shop, and I would clear out a whole shelf turning around, right? What I'm saying to you is we don't make perfect decisions, right? But we have an obligation to give other people grace, right? Cut them some slack. Be able to forgive them, right? Now, look, if somebody truly hurts you, they've really done bad thing, and it's not just inadvertent idiocracy, but it is actually a bent of some destructiveness. It's not healthy, and it's got good. Then I'm telling you right now, be angry, get over it, extend grace, but you can put barriers and boundaries and guidelines on how much you're going to let them folks hurt you again, right? Just is what it is. Dealing with anger is one of the biggest challenges for us as Christians. We have to extend grace. We have to give people the benefit of the doubt. Look at somebody and go, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. And look at the person on the other side of you and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Right? We're going to extend grace to each other. Right? Right? We're going to extend grace because we don't want the sun going down on our wrath. We don't want to hold on to anger so that because here's the thing. Holding on to anger hurt feelings, ill will. I ain't done being mad yet. You think it's hurting them, but it's not. They don't care about you. There's a scene in a TV show, I never watched the show, but I saw the meme on it, of a guy named Don Draper in Mad Men. Y'all ever watch that show? I've never seen it. It's a little dodgy for me. But Don Draper is a smart aleck, right? And so he's in a elevator with a young guy that works for him or something, and the young guy says, I worry about you, Don. And Don steps off the elevator, turns around and says, funny, I don't think of you at all. Right? Whoever you're mad at doesn't think about you a lick. And you staying mad at them or keeping your feelings hurt is like drinking poison and hoping it makes them sick. It doesn't work. There is a reason God told us to be angry but do not sin. Right? And you can have flashes of anger. Right? Flashes of it. And some of it can be legit and some of it cannot be legit. Right? But don't let it take over you. Right? Where do we see anger taking over? Where do we see anger taking over? Road rage incidents. Right? Family fights that divide the family. Friends that are no longer friends. Family that can't even get together. Right? People that you love, that claim to love you, not able to be a part of each other's lives. Over what? I don't know. Each of you have your own struggles, things that make you really angry. I want you to just pause for just a minute. I want you to think about what really hacks you off. What makes you angry? Amy said, I'm going to need more in a minute. You may be just like her. I want you to think about the things and the people that make you angry. I'm going to ask you a question. Just pause. I want you to think. We're going to give you a second. My question for you is this. Is any one of them or any one of those issues worth losing 1 second of basking in the glory of God? Is any of it worth 1 second of your life? Is any of it worth any of that? I'm begging and pleading with you. Make a commitment in your heart tonight, or today, this morning. Make a commitment. I am not going to let my feelings get hurt. I want you to say that out loud with me. I'm not going to let my feelings get hurt. I am gonna extend grace. I am going to not let the sun go down on my wrath. All right, we clear? It's just, and look, this is the hardest thing we do, right? Because there are people in your life that you just naturally conflict with. You don't know what it is, but their mere existence hacks you off, right? You ever been, I have somebody I was around a lot in my life who changed some medication, and they were like, I just want to rip your head off. What did I do? Nothing. The mere fact that you exist makes me want to rip your head off. Okay, we need to go see somebody and get that fixed, right? Sandy and Phil just are over here giggling. I don't know, right? There are, every one of us have people that rub us the wrong way, and some people require more grace, right? It doesn't mean they don't deserve grace. It means they just require a little extra grace. You know, some people are sandpaper to you, and they're not to other people. And maybe some people may be just sandpaper to everybody, right? Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right? But that's not always a comfortable thing, right? It takes a while to knock off the edge. And we have to submit ourselves to that, to say, God, knock off my hard edges. Make me smooth, right? We have to be willing to submit. Because I'm going to say this, I hope it's taken the right way. This is something I wrote down when I first started working on this sermon, and I wasn't sure I was going to say it. But I think I am. And if I make you angry, then come to me later, right? Sometimes we want to hold on to our victimhood in such a way because it defines who we are, and we're not willing to let God heal us because we're afraid of what that might mean. And on the flip side, it also is that we don't want to submit to God's will and subserviate our will to His will. It's hard. And let me give you, I told this story last week, and I don't like to tell the same story 2 weeks in a row, but I'm going to throw this in because I think it's important. So I had a senior pastor at a church I served that was not healthy emotionally and caused a lot of problems and had some real issues and really was not a good dude. And moved me from doing what I was hired to do something else. And I was fixing to quit, and God said to me, Stephen, you're no good to me unless you submit to Him. Right? So I did it. And it made all the difference in the next 2 years for me to be where I needed to be to help that church through one of its most difficult hours. And I wouldn't have been there if I hadn't have submitted. And so forgiveness and extending grace and not letting the sun go down on our wrath and submission are all part of the same thing of us holding on to what we think is right, what we think is good, and what we think is holy versus letting God come in and take care of it. It's either do we trust Him or not trust Him, right? Right? Children and youth, you have a moral obligation to submit to your parents, right? I mean, I'm sorry. You just got to, it's a responsibility. God gives it to you, right? Just like, you know? But you have a moral obligation to submit to your parents, right? You do. Absolute, flat out. I don't like it. Well, is anything that they're telling you to do morally reprehensible, ethically reprehensible, or is going to cause harm to another? If not, then sorry. Right? Husbands and wives. Ooh. Ooh. We're glad you're back. I really missed you that weekend that Auburn and Alabama played. I was loaded with bear for that. Husbands and wives. You have a moral obligation to submit to each other. Did you hear that right? You have a moral obligation to submit to each other, to love each other as Christ loved the church. Right? You both submit. Equally yoked. Adult children. of aging parents. We have a moral obligation to honor our parents. My mother and I fight a lot. We argue a lot. We don't get mad. We don't ever let the sun go down on our wrath, but we argue. Why? Because my mother still sees me as little Stephen Sparks, 5 years old, and thinks I'm precious. I'm just so precious. Right? But she still thinks me of her as her little bitty baby boy. And she always will. And I have to say, Mother, you can't do that. Why not? I'm free and grown. I'm like, Mother, you're 81 years old, and I don't need you out there plowing the garden with mules. Now, she hasn't done that. But she might, you know. We got some friends that know family that might be doing that, right? We have to, as adult children, have to love our parents and submit to them to a certain extent. They are free and grown. But we also have a responsibility to care for them too, the way they cared for us, right? If you are an adult parent of an adult child and you are the elder parent, right? Don't exacerbate your children to anger. Be easy. Listen. Recognize who they are as grown-ups. If you are a part of a church, hey, look around. Here's a church, by goodness, that's great. If you're part of a church, right, we need to submit to each other. We need to trust each other. We need to value each other. And we need to give forgiveness, right? I'm going to tell you a short story, and this is the end. But in the church I grew up in Baldwin, I grew up on the second church on a first church, second church charge, and we got to preach early, and then he drove down to Baldwin to preach. And nice little church, small. Was bigger at one point, went through a scandal, shrunk a little bit. I love that church, grew up in it. But I once heard a lady get in a fight with another church lady. They didn't throw hands or nothing, but there was definitely some ugly stares and stink eyes and didn't treat each other real nice. Because she had baked, I'm trying to be careful, because if I say too much, everybody will know who I'm talking about. Y'all won't, but there'll be people that will know who I'm talking about. But they had baked a specific dessert, and it was their shining glory, and they were the majesty and power and the glory of thy name for that dessert. And everybody in 3 counties recognized it. And one of the other church ladies moved her dessert to the end of the table. You know what I'm talking about? Got her tail feathers in a twist. Right? And didn't get over it. Same church, a couple years later, men's group were working to repair a soffit and a fascia at the back corner of the church, and we were having to remove some vinyl siding that somebody had put up. You know, the kind that they used to sell on Saturdays on the TV, you know, in the middle of the movies. Y'all know what I'm talking about? John Wayne movies usually. And I don't know if you've ever seen 2 people that think they're really good carpenters, but neither of them are particularly good carpenters, try to do something together. And Daddy thought he was going to have to pull them apart because they was fixing to come to blows. And those men never got along again. Because one of them said to the other one, "You don't know what you're doing." Oh. Okay, so I'm meddling today. This is Meddling Sunday. I apologize for meddling so much. And I'm stepping on toes. But if there is anything I can say to you that will make your life better, is don't hold on to anger, grudges, hatreds. Don't hold on to it. Let it go. Give everybody grace. Why? Because you need grace. Right? Right? You need grace. You know, I was a pretty good behaved kid when I was a kid. You know why? Because my grandmama and my mama and my daddy and granddad didn't say as much, but the three of them said all the time, you're going to pay for your raising. You ever heard that? You're going to pay for your raising, meaning the stuff that I do when I'm a child, my kids will do it when they're growing up, and I'm going to have to deal with it. And I don't want to deal with me. Right? It changed the way that I lived. I want you to think about how much grace you need in your life every day from people, how much grace God has given you for all that we have done. And I want you to say, thank you. Let me give it back to the rest of the world. Because it'll set you free. Look at somebody and say, it'll set you free. Look at somebody else and say, it'll set you free. It will set you free. And who the Son has set free is free indeed. Amen.